Well, I'll be. The delivery on Historia's backstory and also Erwin's backstory was fantastic. Definitely leagues above the manga. I'm just like, this is the reason why I want to become an anime only. This is the reason why I stopped reading the manga, for I could become an anime only when we finally, catch up to the events I left off of. Because this episode just blew me away, because it added back in scenes that were obviously skipped in the last episode. I even talked about this in my episode review, that there was some stuff with Hange that was kind of skipped, and we didn't really get a lot of insight to her character, her emotions, after tormenting 2 soldiers from the military police. We didn't really get to see her thought process, and we actually get to see that in this episode, which, once again, just to reinstate the fact that it was said before this series even began, like Season 3, is that the events of this arc from the manga is going to be rearranged and a little bit different compared to it, because the mangaka did not want the arc to be the exact same from the manga and have a little bit different to make it mesh better and feel a lot, fluid compared to its manga counterpart. So I could definitely see how this arc is already starting to be a lot better compared to its manga equivalent, because just a brief FYI for you anime onlys, a lot of manga readers hated this arc. They just downright hated this arc. I remember hearing it every single month when a chapter came out. People were like, this is a crappy arc, get off the politics, get off the human versus human combat, we don't care about this. And I was always like, I like it, I like what's going on here. But it's very apparent that the way this has been adapted and the way they're changing things around, mixing it a little bit differently, it makes the series a lot more enjoyable, at the very least for a watcher of the show. And I feel like the reception that many anime-onlys have had about this arc is pretty freaking positive. So that just honestly blows me away. It just shows that, Wit Studios is doing a fantastic job with the handling of Season 3 of Attack on Titan. But okay, let's get into the finer details of what this episode was about. And that was Historia, her backstory, and how important she is to the overall plot of Attack on Titan. Now, we already knew that Historia was a royalty. That was kind of already established in Season 2, and we get a little bit more clarification within this episode about Historia, who she's related to, how she is entitled to the throne, but also what she had to go through before she became a part of Aaron's group. So it's very apparent from the brief little flashback that Historia, she didn't really have that good of a childhood. Her childhood was a mess. Her mother was there for a time being, but she wasn't really there. She obviously did not care about her daughter whatsoever. I mean, when you look at the scene, Historia was someone that lacked affection from family members. She read a lot of books, she was intelligent, she was able to read and write at a very young age, and she noticed things about her mom that, she wanted to be like. For instance, she noticed her mom is all fancy or acted kind in certain ways, and so she wanted to be like her mom. But then when she finally decided to, do some form of interaction with her, like hug her or whatever, her mother shoved her away, and Historia had a nosebleed, and we got to see the rest. For instance, she's like, I shouldn't have had you, I should have killed you, which, it's horrific. It's horrible to say to your child. You should never say that to anyone, but especially your child. And when you see how little Historia at such an early age was so innocent that she couldn't even really comprehend what her mother was saying, it just really gets to you, because you know for a fact she understands what her mother meant at that time now, in the present day of the story. But when she was younger, she didn't truly comprehend what her mother was doing or how awful it really was. She may have been intelligent, she may have known that her mother was a little bit off compared to how normal families should potentially be. She was just happy to have some form of interaction with her mother. And when you see that moment to when she starts smiling back, regardless of what her mother just did, she smiles back at her mother, even though blood is coming out of her nose, and then, her mother says something, horrible to her, like, I should have killed you, I shouldn't have had you. You gotta think, like, holy crap, she's still able to smile, she's acting this innocent, even though what her mother just said would just break any person, honestly, if you heard that, regardless of age. If you heard that from your own flesh and blood, your own family member, your parents at that would just be a horrible scene to hear, just something to hear and see in your life. So, Historia's childhood was just very, very dark and sad, and it just makes you feel for her, because it explains the reasons to why she acts like she does, and why she, you know, kind of wanted to end it all later on in the story. As we know with Ymir, and when she encountered Ymir, she kind of didn't want to be around anymore. She just wanted to end it all, and now we kind of understand the reason for that. Everything that's happened to her when she started to understand and comprehend things around her, she realized how horrible her past was, what her mother really meant, and it just shows how Ymir entering into Historia's life really changed her for the better. I mean, even though there was a lot of secrets between them, it does seem like, you know, Ymir was a positive impact on Historia's life, and if it wasn't for Ymir, Historia would be long gone. She would be even more depressed than she probably already is. Now, speaking of Historia's backstory, though, can we talk about what Rod did, her father, the true royalty to the throne, the royal family in the walls? So, Rod, I know many are going to look at his character and automatically condemn him. Say, like, what he did, you know, allowing Historia to be sent away like that and having his, you know, supposed wife killed like that is horrible. And yes, it is. But we got to look at the bigger picture here, okay? We got to analyze the scene and think about it. It's very obvious that Kenny in that moment, from the flashback, he had a little bit more power than Rod in that time. Rod seemed like he was just going along with Kenny, and he was having to clean up a major mess. A mess had to be cleaned up. If it wasn't cleaned up, it was going to be critical for all of them. They had to deal with it. So, for instance, if Rod didn't deal with Historia and his wife, or, you know, his lover, it would have ended badly for him as well. So he made the best possible decision for Historia to keep her alive. It's kind of like this. He couldn't save the wife. And it's very obvious that she was kind of irredeemable, the way she treated Historia, you know, leaving Historia for years and all that. It's very apparent even with her final words, she didn't even show any compassion towards Historia to try to act nice at all. So, I mean, when you look at the greater picture here, I mean, the mother, she got what was coming to her. And Rod, most likely, if he does have any compassion or care for his child, which it appears that is the case, it makes sense why he probably let, you know, his lover die. And the reason why he sent Historia away was because he didn't want to watch his daughter die in front of him. He wanted his daughter to be able to live. So it was an act of kindness. So it was an act of, you know, saving her, even though it's not the best outcome for anyone. It was the only option he had to keep her alive. So that's kind of what that scene meant. So many, before you condemn Rod being a horrible person, he had a crap hand and he did the best he could with the crap hand he had. That's kind of what you can see from the visuals we got. Now, anyways, let's also talk about Rod and how he is as a character. The question is, who really is this man? What is he trying to accomplish here? Because, I mean, let's think about this. Historia was sent off, obviously, probably to protect her. He obviously didn't want to see his child die. We know that he was in a situation to where things had to be covered up or whatever, and things needed to be dealt with. The royal line needed to be dealt with. It could not cause any problems whatsoever. So he was in a bad situation. But now his tone has changed, or he's trying to, from what we could see, get back in Historia's life and potentially use her for something, or have her legit, you know, be a part of his family. We don't really know exactly what he wants, but there is something that we need to look at, and that's the fact that Eren is a bigger part to the puzzle. See, it wasn't just Historia that was taken, but also Eren, and it was even stated within this episode that to potentially become a Titan shifter, a regular Titan needs to eat someone that is a Titan shifter. So, for instance, let's say, an example, you know, Mikasa, she was to turn into a Titan, okay? Like a mindless Titan somehow. And somehow she managed to eat Eren, she would actually get Eren's ability. You know, transfer everything and she would be able to become a Titan shifter. That's kind of what this episode was trying to clarify. So, the big thing here is that means that Rod, he has access to an actual Titan. A Titan that can potentially work for him. Either he is a Titan shifter, or he has access to a Titan that will become a Titan shifter. We don't really know. But that's the big thing here that you can see going on, is that even though he might be trying to connect with Historia and, you know, start a family with her, like, you know, be a father and daughter again, Eren is a big piece here. He's a big piece to the puzzle that will potentially make us wonder what type of guy really is Rod. And I mean, also, we know for a fact he's not probably the best person of all time either. I mean, think about it like this. I mean, he clearly wasn't in Historia's life for whatever reason. The way the mother treated Historia was just downright awful. There has to be more meaning to that. But then we know that the general, government, they have been keeping secrets. They do not want secrets to get out about the truth of the world. Whatever happened 100 years ago, they don't want the secrets to get out. And Rod is definitely the center of all of this, of why the truth has yet to get out. And there you go. So let's get into that. Let's get into the truth of the world, the history, and all that, and how it's very vital to the upcoming events of Attack on Titan. So, we've heard time and time again throughout the journey of Attack on Titan. We've heard about certain characters that have died in the past, like two, people that were, in a balloon that died, and then we knew about what happened now with Erwin's father, with the teacher situation. We've heard time and time again that certain people have died when certain technology has popped up, and it's very clear that there is secrets. There's things that the government is trying to hide, and that is what happened here. Erwin's father came to a conclusion that must have been very close to the truth of the world, and because of that, the government wanted to silence him, which makes Erwin's character very interesting when you think about the situation. He wasn't just downright mad that his father was killed. He was upset with himself that he was the cause, but he started questioning why. Why did his father have to die? He even basically says that in the episode, and it starts to make you think. He's like, why did my father have to die? Did he die for the greater good? Did he die for something that needed to be kept secret? Like, why did he have to die? That's what he was trying to wonder about. And he realized after every possible angle that the only reason why his father had to die was because the people in power just didn't want to lose their power. So the reason why his father died wasn't because of the greater good, like, how the Survey Corps does, how they die, they charge out in the battlefield and die to take down Titans. It wasn't the equivalent of that. It was on the fact of his father had to die because of just human greed, what, these people in power wanted. He didn't die for a greater cause. And that's what made Erwin very upset. He was upset with that, but also with the fact that the reason why his father died was because of how he couldn't keep his mouth shut and not comprehend what his father said was in secrecy and confidence that he wouldn't spread it around. So Erwin, he feels responsible for the cause of his father's death. And so, his motive is to reveal the truth that his father, spoke to him about, and also get revenge against anyone that did him wrong, or did his father wrong in the past. So, it's a very interesting backstory to Erwin as well, and how history ties in with that, and how there's a lot of secrets, and it makes you wonder, what is the bigger picture? What is the truth to Attack on Titan, this world that we're currently in? But okay, let's also talk about Hange. So, I already briefly stated this in this, episode review, but I want to slightly get back into it and then get into Hange's character deeply. So, as I said, in the last episode, there was some details about Hange that was skipped, and I talked about it was a little bit upsetting that some things are skipped. It kind of made Hange's character a little bit more shallower compared to her manga equivalent, but it seems like they added it back, besides the censorship, which, like I said, that's no problem. I think nobody is going to have an issue with the censorship. I even covered it in my last episode review, so that's honestly not that big of a problem. But Hange got her characterization and development within this episode, which pleases me greatly. We see how she is struggling with her own humanity, and how she realizes what she's doing, tormenting these two soldiers of the military police, is changing her for good. We've always known that Hange's been a little bit unhinged. She's not been right in the head. She's always sought after answers, Titans, all of that. I mean, how she interacts with Eren. There's so many things about her that are just not right whatsoever. But we get to see another side to her within this episode that shows that Hange isn't just a crazy woman. She isn't someone that just wants to know things, like a mad scientist wanting to know about, Titans. She does have compassion. She does care about people. And even though these two despicable individuals, the military police, did horrible things to Nick, she obviously feels upset with herself of what she is doing, the horrible things she is doing with her own hands. And when you see her kick the table and all that, just her frustration, her anger, because she is she's falling into a pit of despair and can't really climb her way out of it. So really nice characterization for Hange, and I think many can agree with me that it gives a little bit more insight to her character and doesn't allow her just to be a one-dimensional character, which she was in the past. She now is, you know, a really in-depth character, and it makes you wonder what role will she really play ongoing in the story, because, I mean, now she's the leader of the Survey Corps, apparently. And, you know, Erwin's like, you're now the leader. You're in charge now after me. You will lead the charge, Hange. And that says a lot. Because you'd think out of all the characters that could potentially be the leader of the Survey Corps, it would be Levi. You think Levi would be the leader, but he isn't. So, it just shows how much faith that Erwin has in someone like Hange to lead the Survey Corps and, you know, get the job done. So, just really nice scene. I love the way this episode adapted the manga panels and stuff. I think, honestly, it's just better than the manga, and I think many will agree with me on that. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.